Today, we will be predicting the 2020-2021 NFL season. And as you can see, I've already predicted the records for each team. We're going to be going over those records, why those records are there, maybe game by game, going over wins, certain wins and losses. And in this video, we will also be predicting the 2021 playoffs and the Super Bowl 55 matchup and winner. So let's go ahead and get started here in the AFC. In the number 1 seed, we have the Baltimore Ravens. Now the Ravens, I have them going 13-3. I believe that this is going to be the number 1 seed again. Lamar Jackson is going to have another great year. He will not win MVP, but he will be a very dynamic player. I do think this year he will improve on his passing game, and he'll start to rely on that more and become more of a quarterback than a glorified running back. I do have the Ravens losing to Houston, losing to Indianapolis, and losing to Pittsburgh, so their road record could be a cause for concern, but that is made up by their percentage versus winning teams. They were 8-1 versus winning teams this season, and they beat the Chiefs here in week 3, which is probably their biggest game of the year. I think the Ravens win that game, and they win the number 1 seed in the AFC and will be gifted the lone first-round bye in the AFC. All right, up next, the number 2 seed, Kansas City Chiefs, the defending Super Bowl champions, and you really can't go wrong with this team. If you predict that the Chiefs will repeat, nobody would be surprised. This team is maybe the best team in the NFL. Now, the Chiefs historically have started off a little bit slow, and I do expect them to start off slow this season. They will drop games versus Baltimore. I've already mentioned that. That's on Monday Night Football. And they will lose to the Raiders and the Bills on the road. But despite a 3-3 start, they will obviously win 10 straight games and finish the year 13-3. Now, for the Chiefs, it's going to be a little bit easy because they don't play many winning teams here. In fact, they only play 5. They play a lot of losing teams. Their strength of schedule is not very good, which could benefit the defending Super Bowl champions. Up next at the number 3 seed, we have the Buffalo Bills. Now, the Bills, I think, should have won that wild card game against Houston. I know there was a questionable call, blocking the back call, I didn't really agree with, but either way, they still should have won that game. I still confused on how they didn't come away with the win, but I have them going 11-5 here, and I do think that they will finally break the Patriots' iron fist hold on the AFC East. They will finally win that division, and as you can see, they do it in style. They sweep the New England Patriots and finish with a 5-1 division record. Very impressive. Now, a cause for concern is their away record. As you can see here, it is a 3-5 away record. So if they do have a playoff game on the road, they will struggle. At the number 4 seed and the AFC South winner, we have the Tennessee Titans. Now, Tennessee is probably going to be carried by Derrick Henry. In fact, I think Derrick Henry could be a very realistic MVP candidate. The way he carried the Titans throughout that playoff run, the way he carried them to the AFC Championship, there's no reason to think that he won't do the same here. I have them going 10-6, and I know I should have them going 9-7 since they always finish 9-7, but here I think they get another game. Now, cause for concern, there's actually 2. First off is their away record. They only have 3 away wins. And second is the record versus winning teams here. 2 wins to 4 losses. And of course, in the playoffs, that is going to be a major concern going into Tennessee. And another concern for them going into the playoffs is they have 2 straight losses to Green Bay and to Houston. Now, that could be a problem for Tennessee heading into the wild card game. Up next, at the 5th seed, we have the Pittsburgh Steelers, And I know everyone's writing off this team. They haven't made the playoffs in the last 2 years, but I still feel like the Steelers have the talent. I think they have the defense. I think they're able to make a run. Now, the Steelers' biggest problem last year was quarterback. Mason Rudolph was not that good. Duck Hodges, I don't think, should have even been starting last year at all. But they have Ben Roethlisberger coming back. That is big for them. Last full season Roethlisberger played, he had over 5,000 passing. I don't know how the Steelers didn't make the playoffs that year, but for the past 2 years, there has been different reasons why they haven't made the playoffs. In 2018, it was because of the complete cancer in that organization, especially with Ben Roethlisberger and Antonio Brown. Those two always fighting. Antonio Brown always saying, "Why aren't you throwing me the ball?" And in 2019, they didn't make it because of the lack of talent. So both of those problems have been solved. And the Steelers are now back, and I believe that they will be able to make the playoffs in 2020. Now, one problem for them is their record versus winning teams. It's only 3 games, 1 and 5 lost. So the Steelers going into Tennessee, going into Nashville, that could be a problem. At the number 6 seed, we have the New England Patriots. Now, I know a lot of people are going to be saying, why the hell are you putting the New England Patriots in the playoffs? They lost Tom Brady. All of their team's gone. Hold your thoughts. Not all of their team is gone. Only one player is gone. I know Tom Brady is the franchise quarterback. I know he's gone now. But I think the Patriots, if Cam Newton steps up, if he's able to perform at a consistent level, then the Patriots, I don't think, have anything to worry about. One problem here is their record versus winning teams. They are only 1-5. They are only 1-5 against winning teams. And that is a problem, of course, going into the playoffs. Another problem is their record against Buffalo. They lost both games. They lost on the road, and they lost at home on Monday Night Football. And guess who their opponent is? In the wild card game, it is the Buffalo Bills. Unless the Patriots can overcome that, they're going to have a problem even thinking about advancing into the playoffs. In the number 7 seed, we have the Cleveland Browns. Yes, I have the Browns making the playoffs. I know it is a shocker, but I do think that this team does have the talent, and I think they are capable of making the postseason. Now, it's actually a little bit confusing when you consider, number one, their division record. They are only 1-5 in their division. They got swept by Baltimore and Pittsburgh and only beat Cincinnati once. And another is their conference record at 6-6. They're 500 in their conference. So, and compared to Indianapolis, who's the 8th seed, they are 8-4 in the conference. So, I think many people, if this played out like this, would think Indianapolis deserves to make it over Cleveland. But again, the record there, 9-7 compared to 8-8. And I'll elaborate on Indianapolis in a little bit. Cleveland is able to squeak into the playoffs. I think Baker Mayfield has a little bit of a redemption year. I think last year was just a little bit of a fluke. He still has talent. He still has receivers to throw to, and he has a hell of a running back in Nick Chubb to hand it off to. I think the Browns, maybe with a competent coach, I think maybe they could make the playoffs. Now, I don't think they'll get anywhere, but we'll get into that later. At the number 8 seed and barely missing the playoffs are the Indianapolis Colts. Now, the Colts are a team that everyone is hyping up. Everyone is saying, oh, well, the Colts are going to make the playoffs. Phillip Rivers is here. Everything's okay. Everything's going to work out. I'm going to go ahead and say no. First off, Indianapolis, I think, is a very mediocre team. I don't think they have many star players. They do have T.Y. Hilton. They do have Quentin Nelson at offensive at guard. They do have Darius Leonard. They do have a couple good players. But again, in my book, number one rule, not one player can't change everything. And I don't know why so many people fall for this, but one player can't change everything. Philip Rivers definitely can't change what's going on in Indianapolis. And last year, he was not good last year. He was the king of 50-50 balls, and a lot of them were intercepted. So Philip Rivers was not consistent. He was off. He is digressing. I don't see the Colts making the playoffs in 2020. Next up, with the same record at 8-8, are the Denver Broncos. The Broncos are another team that everyone is hyping up. Everyone is saying that that's a dark horse playoff contender because of Drew Lock. What are y'all on right now? Drew Lock had, a couple good games. He looked good, and that's supposed to convince me that he's a good quarterback. Every rookie is going to have a period where they have good games, but I don't see it with Denver. I don't really see their offense really going places. I know that they did get, I think it was Henry Ruggs. I'm pretty sure it was Henry Ruggs. But I just don't understand why people are hyping this team up so much. I see 8-8 as a perfect record for the Broncos. Now, they will get some good wins. They did beat Buffalo. They will beat New Orleans. They will beat Tampa Bay. But I just don't see it with the Broncos. I don't see them as a team that will make the playoffs in 2020. Next up are the Houston Texans at 7-9. Now, if the Texans didn't have a coach that is a dumbass, they would probably be AFC South champions again. They would probably make the playoffs again. But Bill O'Brien is a terrible head coach, and the Texans are going to suffer from it. And, of course, Deshaun Watson is probably pissing himself right now going into the season. Who's he going to throw to? He does have some solid wide receivers, but his number one option is Will Fuller right now. And Will Fuller is a receiver that gets injured a lot. So Texans definitely do have some problems. I still don't fully trust their defense. I know they have talent on their defense, but I just don't see it with the Texans. 7-9 seems like a fair record for them. In the 12th seed, we have the Cincinnati Bengals. Two words that describe this team: Joe Burrow. Now, as an LSU fan, I absolutely love Joe Burrow, but I'm not going to go ahead and say that the Bengals are going to make the playoffs, because they're not. They're going to be 6-10. I really feel like that is a good record for them. You could even say they might go 5-11. And the big reason the Bengals are going to go 6-10 is because of this right here. They play 9 teams that have a winning record, and that is a big problem for the Bengals, and it's just not their year. Maybe next year they could build around Joe Burrow, give him more talent, but for now, I just don't see it. Now we're getting into the bottom of the barrel for the AFC. At the 13th seed, we have the Las Vegas Raiders. This is another team that people hype up and say, they do have talent, but I just don't see it with them, man. I don't think the Raiders are a good football team. Last year really should have been the year they should have made the playoffs. Then they had some terrible losses. I just remember that team just going completely, just turning into a dumpster fire. And it's unfortunate because everyone around them has improved. Teams moving into a new city, it's never good their first season. And it still feels really weird just to say the Las Vegas Raiders. To me, it'll always be the Oakland Raiders. But yeah, no playoffs for the Raiders at 4-12. At the number 14 seed for the AFC, we have the Miami Dolphins at 4-12. Now, for the Dolphins, I do not suggest that they start Tua Tagovailoa, as he still has that injury he has to deal with. I wouldn't recommend the Dolphins starting him just yet, especially with the coronavirus going around. But the Dolphins are going to have another tough year. They're still rebuilding. It's fine for them. They shouldn't tank like they did or like they tried to do last year. But, yeah, going to be another rough year for the Dolphins. Up next, we have the 3-13 New York Jets. And the Jets are just going to jet. You know, the Jets are always the same team to me. And it's astonishing because I couldn't imagine this team making a playoff run. And I know they did about 10 years ago. I'm still surprised how they did that with Mark Sanchez, of all people, the butt fumble. And the Jets are going to butt fumble their way to 13-3. Butt fumble is the perfect term for the New York Jets. You know, when I think of this team, I think of the butt fumble. And that is exactly what the Jets are, a giant butt fumble. And in last place in the AFC, we have the Jacksonville Jaguars. In my opinion, the worst team in the NFL. No talent on that roster, terrible coaching, just a bad culture. Gardner Minshew is probably the only good thing about that team. You can maybe say Leonard Fournette, but this team is just not going to be good at all. If this team won 4 games, I would be completely shocked. And it's really amazing because this team, a couple years ago, was a playoff contender. They made it to the AFC Championship. In my opinion, probably should have went to the Super Bowl. But, of course, they did not. They lost that game. And ever since that game, just has not been good for the Jaguars. And I still think they should move. Heading into the NFC, we have my team, the New Orleans Saints, and I have them being the number 1 seed at a 12-4 record. Now, you're going to say, well, you're biased, okay? If you think the Saints are going to be 12-4, you think they're going to be the number 1 seed, well, this is what I truly think. I really think the Saints are the best team in the NFC. I think San Francisco and Green Bay are going to digress. And as far as the regular season goes, the Saints are probably the best team in the NFL. Regular season. I can't emphasize that enough. They do have a tough schedule, especially in the later part of the season. I'm looking at this 4-game stretch, 3 away games, and the home game against Kansas City. But New Orleans always seems to get through those rough stretches. And I know I do have them losing the opener against Tampa Bay. If we know anything about New Orleans, if one thing is consistent, other than constant playoff failure, is that they always lose in week 1. So they will lose against Tampa Bay, but they'll beat them later in the season on, I believe, Sunday Night Football, yes. So, there's no real concern for the Saints heading into the playoffs, other than the fact that it is the playoffs. And, of course, that is the big deal for the Saints. At the number 2 seed, we have the Seattle Seahawks. And the Seahawks, if they avoid injuries, if they don't get hit with the injury bug, they're going to be perfectly fine. And I have them winning the NFC West, which, in my opinion, and in a lot of other people's opinion, is the toughest division in all of football. Now, the Seahawks, maybe a cause for concern is their 4-3 record versus winning teams. And I think the Seahawks are going to maybe play down to some competition in a couple games. This stretch here, 4 games where they lose 3 out of 4, but the Seahawks will still be a force to reckon with in the NFC. They are a team. They're a team that's experienced in the playoffs. It seems like this team's in the playoffs every year. They still have Russell Wilson, Pete Carroll. This is still a very good football team, and expect them to be near the top in the NFC. Next up, we have the Green Bay Packers going 12-4. Now, for the Packers, it's easy for them because they have another easy schedule. They play 9 teams that will be a losing record. Packers, I thought, should not have been the number 2 seed a year ago. I really feel like they should have been the 3 seed New Orleans be the number 2 seed, but I guess that doesn't matter since, well, look what happened. But with Green Bay, I feel like they'll have another solid year. They have an easy slate of games to finish out the year, and they will be NFC North champions for the second time in a row. Next up at the 4th seed, we have the Dallas Cowboys at 11-5. Now, the Cowboys, man, past couple of years have been a disappointment. Everyone loves to make fun of them. I love to make fun of them. I lived in East Texas for about 9 years. It was crawling with Cowboys fans. I had to hear non-stop about how the Cowboys were going to win the Super Bowl after every single game they won, and they've always disappointed. I think this year they will take a step forward and they will be 11-5 team. And I think because they do have an easier schedule, again, they play in the NFC East, which is not a good division at all. For Dallas, I think that's still their division to win. It was their division to win last year, or it was their division to lose, and they lost it, but I don't think they're going to do the same thing this year. I think they will make the playoffs, and they will be going in as a force to be reckoned with. Up next, we have the most overhyped team in the NFC in the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Now, as overrated as they are still a solid football team. Concern for me is their defense. I don't really like their defense, especially their secondary. Their front seven is pretty good, but their secondary, especially going up against NFC South rivals, it's a cause for concern. But the Tampa Bay Buccaneers will have a strong start. They'll lose 3 straight games here, and they'll lose 4 out of 5. But I think the Buccaneers are going to be able to shake all that off and finish strong, winning 3 out of 4 and making the playoffs. And again, the Buccaneers do benefit from a not terrible schedule, as they have 11 teams that have a losing record. So easy sledding for them. Division, they struggle a little bit going 3-3, but that's what the NFC South does to you. Next up, we have the Minnesota Vikings, and I do have them going at 10-6. Same record as last year. I don't think the Vikings really improved, but I don't think they digressed at all either. They did lose Stephon Diggs, but they replaced them with Justin Jefferson out of LSU. Yeah, this team, to me, is a home team. And as you can obviously see that with them going 8-0 at home. But their away record is a problem. And the biggest problem for the Vikings is Kirk Cousins not being able to perform in prime time. He is just, I don't know, he's just a different quarterback when going up against primetime teams. And no, the Saints in the playoffs do not count as a primetime matchup for Kirk Cousins, because, I mean, it's the Saints in the playoffs. I don't know what happens to them. Of course, in the next round against the 49ers, Vikings got curb stomped. So I think Kirk Cousins still has some things to prove. And speaking of the 49ers, here they are. I do have them starting 6-0, so that'll be red hot. But down this stretch here, and this game, they will lose 4 out of 5 there. But they will finish rather strong with 3 out of 5 here, and they'll finish 10-6. Of course, problem for them, beating winning teams, but the biggest problem for the 49ers, Super Bowl hangovers. And Super Bowl hangovers apply especially if you are an NFC team. If you reside in the NFC and you went to the Super Bowl, you're not going back the next year. And you might not even make the playoffs. Los Angeles Rams last year didn't even make the playoffs. Philadelphia Eagles the year before did make the playoffs, but snuck in the 6th seed. Atlanta Falcons did make the playoffs, but again, snuck in at the 6th seed. And the year before that with the Carolina Panthers, quite awful at 6-10 in 2016. So I don't think the 49ers will miss the playoffs, but they will digress. And at the 8th seed, barely missing the playoffs, is going to be the Philadelphia Eagles. Now, the Eagles are a team that have struggled with injuries, and that is going to be a problem for the Eagles. And I really do think they'll suffer the injury bug again. And even if they did make the playoffs, Carson Wentz is probably going to get hurt again. But the Eagles are still a solid roster, and this is a team that I think could reverse that. You know, they could prove me wrong, make the playoffs. I think they could do it. They do have the talent on the roster. They still have a Super Bowl roster, but injury bug and other factors keep them from doing that. They do play more games versus winning teams than losing, so that will be a problem. At the 9th seed, we have the Arizona Cardinals. Now, there's a lot of hype with this team with DeAndre Hopkins and Kyler Murray. I do think Kyler Murray will be spectacular, but I don't think he will be enough to bring the Cardinals to the playoffs. And, of course, the Cardinals residing in the NFC West plays a big role in that. Cardinals are going to have a lot of problems in that division. I just don't think they're ready yet. This could be a team in the future that could make a playoff push, could make a playoff run. But right now, I still think the Cardinals just a couple pieces away from being a playoff contender. I don't think they're quite there yet. At the number 10 seed, we have the Los Angeles Rams. This season is going to be about as rough as that logo. Man, I don't know what they were thinking with that. It looks like a drink, like a drink logo. Like you buy a bottle and it'll have that logo on it. It fits, like it would make sense. Anyways, so for the Rams, last year should have been the year that they made a playoff push. They had all the talent, and they still couldn't get things done with them. Cap space is going to be a problem, and for the Rams, it's just not going to be that great of a year for them, especially going in the NFC West. They will get a couple key wins versus San Francisco here, versus Chicago, versus Seattle. But the Rams are just not playoff contenders in my book, and especially with a loaded NFC, they just don't fit. In the 11th seed in the NFC, we have the Chicago Bears being at 8-8. This really depends on who's going to be the quarterback. Is it going to be Trubisky? Is Trubisky going to go back to his 2018 form where he was good? Or is it going to be Nick Foles, who seems to struggle in the regular season, but of course when the playoffs roll around, no problem. The Bears just don't really seem like a playoff team to me. And they do have a bit of a rough schedule, I think. There's not really any flashiness with the Bears. They're a team, great defense, not good offense. And in the NFL, you need an offense. It doesn't have to be a great offense, but it needs to be some semblance of an offense. I don't think the Bears have that. At the number 12 seed, we have the Carolina Panthers. Now, the Panthers always been a team where I think they can make a run, and it seems like they will, but then they lose like 5 straight games or something, and they don't make it. Now, as much as I love Teddy Bridgewater, I don't think he's going to make much of a difference at Carolina. I think talent-wise, they're the worst team in the NFC South. I obviously don't have them being the worst NFC South team, as you can see here. Panthers will not be playoff. They won't be close to the playoffs, and they will be quite mediocre at 7-9. At the number 13 seed, we have the Atlanta Falcons, the bitter rival of the New Orleans Saints and my least favorite team. Even if I cast all that aside, Falcons are they're a team that has the talent to get it done, but they don't use it. Their defense is complete trash. Poor Matt Ryan has to ball out every game just to lose by a touchdown. And, for the Falcons, they're just not a consistent team. So I have them going 6-10, finishing last in the NFC South. Although I don't think it's quite fair to have an 0-8 away record. I could probably change one of these games. So we'll switch that out there. They'll still be 6-10. I don't know why I had them at 0-8 away. But yeah, Falcons 6-10, last place. At the number 14 seed, we have the Detroit Lions. In my opinion, the Detroit Lions are the most irrelevant team in the NFL. Nobody pays attention to the Detroit Lions. Nobody really cares about them. The Lions, I think they'll get some wins. They're a team that will, they'll get wins. But, of course, it won't be enough. Only 4. They do play 7 winning teams, and I don't think they're going to beat any of them. They'll lose the annual Thanksgiving game. I mean, that's the only time anybody other than the Lions fans watches the Lions game is Thanksgiving. That's the only thing they're good for, I guess. Which, I know I'm being harsh on the Lions. Sorry, Lions fans, but what can I say? It's the truth. At the 15th seed, we have the New York Giants at 3-13. Now, Saquon, they are wasting his career. The Giants don't seem like a team that can really win games. I don't think the Giants are really competitive at all. I mean, they got Andrew Thomas in the draft, which is a good pick. I mean, I felt like they could have probably gotten a better value pick. But yeah, the Giants they're just not there. I just don't think the Giants are good at all. And they do have a tough schedule. They play 10 games versus winning teams. So that'll definitely go into them having a bad year. And at the number 16 seed, we have the Washington football team. You heard that correctly. The Washington football team. That is the most bland, the most uncreative name I can think of. I mean, calling them the Deadskins would have been better. I mean, there was just so much more you could have done with the name, but Snyder is an idiot. He's a dumbass. So things like that are going to happen. Redskins, quite horrible. They don't really have a quarterback unless Alex Smith comes back and maybe, I don't know, turns good and helps the Redskins win, make the playoffs, make a playoff push like he did a couple of years ago. Just nothing for the Redskins, in my opinion. They'll be the number 16 seed in the NFC, and they will be one of the teams trying to tank for Trevor. Okay, so now that we have gone over all 32 NFL teams, it's playoff time. So let's get predicting on some playoff games. So in the AFC, first game up is the Pittsburgh Steelers versus the Tennessee Titans. To me, the Titans they're more experienced. I think Ryan Tannehill is going to have a big day. Ben Roethlisberger will be able to keep up, but I don't think he'll be enough. I think Tennessee runs away with it. I think they'll win. Next game up is the New England Patriots versus the Buffalo Bills. Bills swept the Patriots in the regular season, but I will actually be picking the New England Patriots. I still think the Patriots are just a great team. They are a great team, and I feel like they're going to be able to go into Buffalo and get a win. I know Josh Allen and the Bills, I think, they're a team I want to win in the playoffs, but I don't think they will. And we have the Cleveland Browns versus the Kansas City Chiefs. This is an easy one. Give me the Chiefs. The Browns, I don't even think should probably be in the playoffs. I think it should probably be the Colts here. They're in, and they're about to get their asses kicked by the defending Super Bowl champions, Kansas City Chiefs. Now moving over to the NFC side of things, we have the Buccaneers versus the Dallas Cowboys. Give me Dallas. I know, I'm sorry, Tom Brady fans. I'm sorry. I know it's a rule for Tom Brady to not lose in the playoffs. I know, but he did it last year, so I don't understand why it wouldn't be different this year. So here's the thing. I think Dallas overall is a better team. I think they're a more balanced team. And when Dallas makes the playoffs, they usually do win in the wild card game. And the Bucs have not made the playoffs in quite a while. So I do think Dallas is just the better team, more balanced. Their offense will be able to move the ball. Their defense will be able to hold that Bucs offense in check. And I think Dallas will win versus the Buccaneers. So now we have a divisional matchup here. The number 6 seed Vikings going up against the number 3 seed Green Bay Packers. Now Kirk Cousins, again, prime time. Can he win? Well, he did win last year versus the Saints. Again, that doesn't count. This is against the Packers. This is against a real playoff team. This is a real playoff game for the Vikings. Not going to happen. The Vikings offense will stall. The Packers offense they'll struggle, but they will be able to move the ball, I think, and they will be able to come away with the win. Last wild card game, we have the 49ers versus the Seahawks. And here, give me the Seattle Seahawks. Now, I think the Seahawks, these two teams, I think, are similar. I think they're balanced. I think that they are equally matched, but Seattle's playing at home, so I think they will win it. Now we are in the divisional round, and the first matchup for the AFC, we have the number 4 Tennessee Titans versus the number 2 seeded Kansas City Chiefs. Give me the Chiefs, and for the second year in a row, the Chiefs will beat the Titans. Again, I think for the Titans, one player cannot carry you that far, and the Chiefs are just too good of a team to lose in this aspect. And the second game, we have the number 6 seeded Patriots versus the number 1 seeded Ravens. Ravens lost last year in the divisional round. Quite disappointing. They're not going to do it again. And we're going to get the AFC Championship matchup that we all wanted last year. Chiefs, Ravens. NFC, we have the number 3 seeded Packers versus the number 2 seed Seahawks. Give me the Seahawks in Seattle. Now, the Seahawks, out of every team here, other than the Patriots, are the most experienced in the postseason, and I think they will beat the Green Bay Packers here. Packers, Aaron Rodgers used to be able to carry this team. Don't think he will now. Seems like the Packers always lose in Seattle, so they will lose that game. And the NFC second matchup will be the Cowboys versus the Saints. Now, again, I always joke and I always say that the Saints will lose in the playoffs just because it's a playoff game. I don't think they will here. I think the Saints will beat the Cowboys, and I think that the Saints will be able to overcome their demons this week at least. I'm only saying this because the team that the Saints are playing do not have the colors of purple and gold and do not have the logo of a Viking. For some reason, those two factors alone just frighten Saints players. It completely changes everything. But the colors are white and blue, and it's a star instead of a Viking. So, the Saints should have no problem. AFC Championship game, we have the Chiefs versus the Ravens. I think the Ravens will win at home. I think Mahomes, it's going to be a high-scoring game. Offenses are going to go off. They're going to have a field day. But I think the Ravens will end up winning it in the end. I think whoever has the ball last is probably going to win. And I think that will be the Ravens at home. And they'll advance to the Super Bowl. NFC Championship, Seattle versus New Orleans. Give me Seattle. I know picking against your own team, that's brutal. If we're going off of talent, if we're going off who I really think should win, I pick New Orleans. But here's the thing: it's the playoffs, NFC Championship game, and Seattle is just more experienced than the Saints. And I think they have the roster to go to the Super Bowl. Saints will suffer another heartbreaking loss at home in the NFC Championship game, and we'll miss out on another Super Bowl. And we have our Super Bowl matchup, the Ravens versus the Seahawks. Who do I think is going to win? I'm picking the Baltimore Ravens. Lamar Jackson will get his first Super Bowl trophy. It will be a hell of a game. Jackson versus Wilson. But I think in the end, Lamar Jackson and the Baltimore Ravens will prevail. So, who do you think will win the Super Bowl? Who do you think the Super Bowl matchup should be? Who do you think will be the MVP? What did I get right? What did I get wrong? Tell me down below in the comments what you think. And that'll be it. And that's all. If you did like the video, please leave a like. And if you want to see more from this channel, clicking the subscribe button wouldn't be a bad idea. It would benefit me and it would benefit you. So that's it. I'll see you in the next video. Peace.